Hello, my name is Kate Jones, and this is my case study for the budget debacle for EDL 854 Building Finance. So, Carl Santos is the principal of Briardale Elementary, which is a school within a district that has 5 other elementary schools, as well as a few middle schools and a high school. Each of the elementary schools has their own foundation, which is the main source of funding for supplementary programs. And the Briardale Foundation is headed by parent Mr. Barely, who apparently is a bit of an overachiever. And he wants to make more money than ever before, and decided that the foundation would run a raffle for cash fundraising events. And the foundation agreed, and the school community agreed, and it was looking like it was going to be the most successful fundraiser in the history of the Briardale Foundation. But alas, this type of fundraising is illegal. And the police showed up, stopping the raffle, leading to the arrest of Mr. Barely, the embarrassment of Mr. Santos, the principal, and no fundraising money for the school. There are a couple of issues when we look at this case study. The first being that it's an illegal fundraising event. And in an attempt to make more money than ever, Mr. Bailey initiated a plan to run a fundraiser not knowing that it wasn't legal. Clearly, this is oversight by the entire foundation, by the principal, and definitely by Mr. Barely. Ethical issue, I mean, Mr. Barely's got this frenemy thing going on with Mr. Morley and was just desperate to make more money than him, to the point that he wasn't really paying attention to what was really important, and that was the students and the money that the programs, the money that the fundraisers would fund. This is a competing interest. When you're more focused on beating someone else out, you're not really thinking about the big picture. Other questions that might come from this is, should a parent or a volunteer be in charge of this type of foundation in the first place? Or instead, should Mr. Santos be in charge of something like this, or someone from the district? Is this fully Mr. Santos's responsibility? Should he take the blame for what happened and for this mishap? So if we're going to synthesize this into one sentence, in an effort to show up his frenemy, Mr. Barely unwittingly planned an illegal fundraiser for Briardale Elementary School, and instead the school made no money. Mr. Barely was arrested, Mr. Santos was embarrassed, and the community is questioning the leadership of the school. So the people involved in this, and some quote-unquote unanswered questions. Well, we have Mr. Santos, the principal, Mr. Barely, the president of the foundation, Mr. Morley, who, because I read too many mystery novels, I believe is obviously the tipster, because, you got to compete with someone who's also competing with you, I guess. So Mr. Morley, who's probably the tipster, the Briardale Foundation, which is made up of parents from the community, the sheriff, unfortunately for Mr. Barely, and parents and community members. And really one of the questions that we have to ask at this point, because we're really not sure, is how is everyone feeling about this? Like, where is the blame lying at this moment? How does the community feel about it after reading about it on the front page of the newspaper the next day? What do we know about the place itself? Briardale Elementary has a population of 600 students. It serves a diverse community and usually is the community meeting center, as its building can hold up to 1,000 people. It is one of 6 elementary schools in the district, and there are also 2 middle schools and a high school. The entire district has a basic skills curriculum, and that is funded by the district itself. All supplementary programs are funded by the foundation. So most of the time, that includes art, music, and foreign languages. A couple of things that we have to keep in mind about how this might be damaging to the school community is, one, the very most important thing, and really the thing that would be on my mind after this, is how are we going to fund these supplementary programs for the kids? That is really what could be the most damaging thing. It's damaging to the students' experiences, the students' education, and the parents' view of the school. So in my mind, I would be like, okay, what can I do to fix this, and how can I fix it as soon as possible? The reputation of the school is in danger. I mean, if they believe that the administration is careless, they may stop using the building to host community events. And honestly, if you're Mr. Santos, you might be like, oh my gosh, can I lose my job over this? The foundation also is going to have to be run differently in the future. So if I'm Mr. Santos, I'm also worried about how am I going to rebuild this foundation in a way that we can regain the trust of the community. So, couple of options. First, do nothing. Let it play out. Start again next year. And really, that's not really an option. The community would probably go crazy about that. And on top of it, there would be no funding for the programs. So you're really not fixing anything by doing nothing. The next option would be create a plan for the following year. And this isn't bad. It does leave the problem of no money for the programs at this time, and there still may be some distrust and anger over that. However, by addressing the scandal and planning to move forward by redoing the foundation, that could be an option. The other thing would be an emergency meeting with the foundation members where we install a new president with new guidelines as soon as possible and move forward with an emergency plan for a fundraiser so that we can still get some of the money back for these programs for the kids. The last option is take control of the foundation. Mr. Santos his initial response might be, let me take this over, start a new fundraiser, and control every aspect of this moving forward to make sure that nothing like this happens again. And as a little bit of a control freak, I can understand that desire, but it also may show distrust in other parents or members of the community, and it might not help the bad reputation since honestly, this was Mr. Santos's oversight in the first place. So like I said, doing nothing isn't an option at all, and taking complete control is not the way to address this kind of an issue. By starting fresh the next year, Mr. Santos has time to properly train a new foundation leader, make himself more aware of the legalities of fundraisers, but it leaves the school without financing for the supplemental programs, and honestly, that brings the most irreparable damage to the most important stakeholders, the students. So, if I were Mr. Santos, I would go into emergency mode. I would install a new president to the foundation as soon as possible. This person should be familiar with the community and possibly have been a member of the foundation already, maybe even have been the president of the foundation in the past. I would immediately make sure that there's proper training for all members of the foundation, and this has to be with training through the principal or through an outside source that can funded by the principal. And Mr. Santos has to be aware of what's legal and illegal, and he's the one who has to make sure that that is communicated to the volunteers. With that, they have to have an emergency meeting with the foundation to plan a fundraiser, even if it's the same type of fundraiser that's been done in the past, to make sure that they're making some money for these kids. And then they also need to make sure that all of the people who bought raffle tickets are refunded quickly. This way there's no anger about money as well as distrust. Because this was on the front page of the newspaper, the media should be addressed, but maybe wait until there is a plan. Make sure that when we are addressing the media, there's a plan, that there is an apology to the community, and make sure they know that steps are being taken to ensure that nothing like this happens again. And when you're comfortable, make sure that those steps are being shared with the community as well. So how do we implement this? Put on your big boy or big girl pants and face the music. You need to address the foundation, who is probably extremely frustrated about all the work that they put in. Apologize for not being aware of the illegality of the fundraiser. From there, speak with some of the trusted foundation members and see if they can step in to help you save the year. Do a lot of research, put together a pamphlet of the types of fundraisers that are allowed, and specifically explain the types that are not. Refund the money from the raffle tickets as soon as possible with an apology letter from Mr. Santos and the new president. With the foundation, consider a timeline for a new fundraiser. Once a new leader is in place and a fundraiser has been tentatively planned, address the community, take responsibility for not overseeing the project correctly, and also show them that you're planning to solve the problem. Be prepared because there's probably still going to be distrust, and it's very possible that the school may not be able to earn their usual amount of money. But it is extremely likely that the community will rally for the betterment of the students. This is about them, and it is the parents that are really the main source of fundraising. So I believe that it's possible to fix this. And in the meantime, rebuild the foundation and re-educate the foundation. Mr. Santos shouldn't take over, but he should have more involvement in the process. Start fresh the next year with new policies and new and improved fundraising ideas. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for this class. I learned a lot, and I'm definitely a little less terrified of building finance.